Well, hello again. Well, I'm out here in the shop today. Cold and damp again. I thought I'd have a little ramble about tires on these tractors, on the end tractors. As I've mentioned before, the rear tires is quite a pricey proposition to get into. Now, these tractors came, the early ones, the 9Ns, they had little tiny 10-inch tires on them. Watch some old videos, they almost look cartoonish, they're so tiny. Don't ask me when, but they pretty quickly went to an 11.2. And now you'll very commonly see these 12.4s. I think they're made in Czechoslovakia or Poland. Then they must fit a host of other tractors from the era. The dealers always have them in stock. The price is good on them. 12.4s work well. Now my catalog shows 4 different rim sizes. They're all 28 inches, whoosh, this way. They show a 9, 10, 11, and 12 inch width on the rim. Now oftentimes you may have to replace the rim. They get rotted with that calcium water thing down around the valve stems here, or maybe even just in general if they're that old and rotted. If it's just the valve stem, you know, anybody competent can weld something in there to repair that hole. If you have to buy new rims, consider what tire choices you have. Now, everyone's tempted to go with the 13.6s and that 12.4 13.6s in reference to this height. Now, these ones are, well, they're getting down there in wear. The 13.6s, you get this huge lug. And it sounds like a very appealing notion, more lug, more traction. We'll come back to that in a minute. The 13.6s with the lugs, if we get down and look at Lynn's tractor, they actually stand just a little bit proud of the fender. They're that big. Now they do fit without any clearance issues or whatever the case may be. I'm setting up a tape measure here as we move to the next stage. Yeah, I don't have enough hands. I'll come back to it. I was looking, I thought in my Ferguson manual at one time, I'd done the math on all the ratios, final drive ratios, and your road speed with everything from the 10.2s up to the 13.6s. Alas, I can't find it. I didn't look that hard. And I can't remember, but there's quite a difference. Now, who needs road speed anymore? You're not driving from farm to farm with these things. I can't imagine many people going down the road with them. And really, you want them to go slower, not faster, especially if you've got a loader on them. Now, the coveted Sherman high-lows and the Hups, and there was Parker made one. There was another company as well. Those things are getting hard to find. If you find one, you want to take it home, rebuild it, you know, clean it up, check it out before you put it in. Parts aren't really available for them. It's a delightful thing if you find an end tractor. They made them in lows, they made them in highs, and they made them in the much coveted high-low. Excuse me. Last time I priced them out at a wrecking yard, they're like $500 for a high or a low, and about $15 for a high-low. You have to split the tractor to put them into the middle there where I'm aimed. Where do they go? Well, in between the clutch and the tranny. If you find one on a tractor, if the lever only moves from a neutral position to one way, you either have the high or the low. Now, if the tractor's running, you can ascertain which one you have. If it's not, you don't know. Because the way Sherman identified them was they painted them different colors. Well, you can't see them. They're down in there. So you might not be sure what you've got. Again, very seldom would you want really to gear them up. You want to gear them down. Especially as I've mentioned before, these end tractors, the effective final drive ratio in reverse is the same as third gear. It's way too busy. So the Sherman would look after that for you, be it the low or the high-low, of course. Now, let me set my phone down for just a half a second here. Yeah, quick picture of the rims while we're at it. Okay, here we go. A set of 12.4s. From the rim up to the top of the carcass. I'll call it about 9 inches. I got a set of 13.6s here on poor old Joseph and his coat of many colors, who now, alas, is a parts tractor. We're at 10 and some. Oh, I should have got a width on it as well, I suppose. Here, I'll do that quick. That's a good foot across the 13.6. Again, not a great example because that's the turf tire. This is about 10 inches across at the carcass. Quite a difference. So if you're replacing your tires, you're going to want to think about your rim size and where you're trying to go. You know, loader tractor, you'd want to go a little smaller. Try and slow it down. They're just even in first. You know, you want your RPM up to keep that pump working. They're not a great loader tractor, but they'll do it. Say you've got a Jubilee where the pump is not disconnected when you clutch, or a later tractor, the 800, 600 series and stuff after the Jubilees. They had a 2-stage clutch where you could clutch and not disengage your hydraulics, the hydraulic pump, and then you could clutch further and it would. So things to consider, things to think about. If you're going to do some bushwork hauling with it, the 13.6s with the deeper lugs, sure, why not? Absolutely. Snow, yeah, more lug is better. Realize all the lug in the world doesn't do you any good. These things get crippled fast when it's icy. You'd be surprised how quickly you can get them stuck. Sorry. A little trick I've learned is you've got your brakes. A quick shot of the pedals. One operates each brake. With some, so one wheel's spinning, you lock that wheel up, the other wheel will drive. Here's the trick. If you can feather those brakes nicely, try and keep them in a reasonably equal adjustment. If you can feather those brakes nicely with some finesse, you can kind of turn it into a Positrack. Of course, it doesn't affect the differential and become a Positrack, but by manipulating those brakes with some finesse, you can get both wheels spinning at the same time. That little trick might get you out of a minor situation. Now, if you've got to plow pure ice, and I did one year with one of these. This sounds like a crazy notion, but now that's a roofing. It's not a self-tapping or a tech screw, but you see my point with the big hex head. Excuse me. And your battery powered drill gun, you can actually put them in there. You've got quite a bit of where are we here? We got lots of tread to go to there. Get a short, fat one. There's an awful lot of carcass in there too. Obviously, you don't want to pierce it. But if you get a short, fat tech screw or something similar, again with that hex head, you would not believe how well that works. You can come across. What I did is I put one just on the inside, not right on the high point. So it's not running on the high point all the time, but just a little bit off of it. And you would not believe you can actually feel that screw when it contacts the ice. It's almost like a chain, a set of tire chains. Now, problem, yes, they pull out. So if you don't spin the wheel, they won't pull out. If you do, they will. And then you want to go around maybe and try and find them with a magnet or something. Again, that's more, a trick might get you out of a jam. I wouldn't recommend it. I had one lot I was plowing. The tractor stayed there, and that was the only place I plowed, and there was no drainage, and it was just, the whole thing was a skating rink all winter long. I didn't want to pay the salt and sand, and that little trick worked fantastic. Use a lot more screws than you might think. I'm not going to bother with the math on that. You can count your lugs. And again, you really only need, you know, just one on each one. That'll get you out of the jam. It'll keep the tractor moving on the ice. It'd cost you a fortune in screws, and you'd be there for a week if you were going to line the whole affair. Now, again, thinking about that road speed and what you're doing with the tractor, you might want to have the smaller tires. Now, pricing, I don't know. Again, everybody seems to put the 12.4s on. They're cheap, they're readily available, and I think they probably fit all the rim sizes, except maybe that little 10-inch. I don't know. Talk to your tractor guy, get on the net, do your homework, whatever. You don't want to go and buy a set of 13.6s and then discover they don't fit the 10-inch rim. That would be a drag, right? The rims, they're about 110 bucks. Wow, old price. So is the hub center here. Probably you're not going to need one of those. And of course, the rims do flip around. These tractors will go from a 48-inch center all the way out to, ooh, is it 84 or something, by flipping the rims around. I noticed, I don't think the detail will quite show here, somebody over the years during a tire change flipped the one rim and it tracks off about 1 inch. Now, no harm, no foul. I just left it alone. I'm not going to worry about that. And we'll move around the front here. You can see I'm tracking just a little wider on the front because I've got some oversized car tires on. What are these, 15s or 16s? I guess I could bend down and look. I think they're 15s. Or you can have the skinny little 19-inch rib tire, rim and ribbed tire, which was more of a dirt thing. So you'll often see these on this style of tire because you can just throw any old tire on in the world. Now, the reason I'm tracking off a little wide here is these tires are just wide enough. If I flip the rim around, the concavity of it, that's part of aligning your, or spreading your front end. You can see there's a difference on the dish. What do you call all that? The offset? Whatever that tire terminology is. When I flip mine around to bring them inside of my rear tire or more in line with it, I'm perilously close to here with my oversized car tire. And the one rim actually has a pretty good bend in it. I'm not sure if it would, you know, jibe with that. All things considered, a little wider is a little better. They're a little more stable. I don't see any problems. I haven't had any problems with this being out of a line, moving through the snow, plowing. It's not a big cause for concern, but we're talking tires. What the heck? I thought I'd throw it in. Now, I should have prepared this sooner, I suppose. Bear with me a second here. I'll move some junk. Interesting side note, which probably has little to do with anything you're going to encounter, but what the heck. Oh dear, got a lot of mess in there. Should have done this sooner. Hang on, it'll take 2 seconds. When I bought this Ferguson, it came with these tires here, and they're tiny. It's not laid out well. It's not really representative of comparing to the 12.4s or the 13.6s. But these things sit way down in here on my fender, way down in. And again, when I was doing that math, figuring ground speeds, I thought, hey, man, does that ever slow the girl down? I get a lot more power if I want to do any slow speed work, loaders or whatever. Now, those are a 16-inch split rim, and what they're off of is an old corn wagon, or a grain wagon. Those tires are older than 1962, and they were bought out by Firestone. That's as far back as I can research them. And all the tire guys, and I mean, I've hunted high and low, they all just go, whoa, I don't know what that is. I would have liked to have kept them on the Ferguson, really slow down the ground speed. But, well, it's a project for another day. A couple of tire guys have been willing. They said, hey, if you bring the rim in, Scott, you know, we'll see if we can find something that yammers on there. Nobody wants to deal with split rims anymore, the tire guys. You can't blame them. So I think that's a stalled project. Again, my point is, you might want to consider your ground speed and what you're doing. If you've got one good tire, I mean, you're just going to match it. What the heck? But if you got to start from scratch, you might want to consider where you're aimed at with that tractor, what it's doing. If you're in the bush, okay, the 13.6s, a lot more lug, that's great. But if you've got an end where the reverse is too fast, well, you are backing up in the bush. You might want to consider going to the 12.4s. Sorry, I don't have the math at hand on those ground speeds. You can do that yourself. And most people aren't going to put a whole lot of serious consideration into ground speed. But I thought it was worth talking about, worthy of note. I'll just mention the reason I was thinking about that when I first got the Ferguson there. I was considering leaving it in town and doing residential drives. These things are just the right size for that. If you've got the push-pull blade, you know, you can back up to the guy's garage door, you can pull it out, you can push it. You'd be in and out in scant moments. Not a big market for that anymore. Pretty near, you know, there's somebody in every block who's got a snowblower. They're usually pretty good about going around and doing your neighbors. However, I had thought that's why I was thinking about the road speed on the Ferguson with the tires at the time. You know, zip around town faster. I got to cross town to get some fuel, whatever the case may be. Oh, okay, sub-story. When I was a kid, I had an N tractor and a 9N, and I'd deliver the local paper and plow snow at the same time. Again, it's the right size weapon for those residential, in-town residential properties. I should have laid out those hubs better. Those weirdo 16-inch split rim things. They see my hub on the rear end. Those hubs did not convex, concave, whatever, in over the hub, as do obviously our dished convex, concave units here. So the tires were like way out there, man, way out. So far that I could move those fenders out and get some carrying capacity down in there. I could carry fuel, maybe an extra battery. If I wanted to put in an electric over hydraulic plow on the front. That's why I was trying to pursue, let's call it that weirdo oddball size tire. Didn't come to fruition. Obviously a stalled project. Note, with these marvelous new handheld devices where we can snap a quick picture, take pictures. I worked in the motorcycle industry for years. I had my own shop for 8 years. We draw pictures, maps, all that business. When I took this thing apart, was it a couple of years ago now? I'll get back to it. Well, I haven't. And I've got everything in pieces. I started prepping and painting them. To do all my nuts and bolts and everything. My gasket's set there. I'm waiting for some more parts, some motivation. Now the end tractors, you could stir it around in a barrel and give it to me. I've done enough of those. Now these aren't a whole lot different, but I'm pretty sure when I get back to putting it back together, I wish I'd snapped a few picks along the way, that's for sure. We all do it. Everybody does it. Don't take pictures. Make notes if you and or in conjunction with your pictures. So that's a little quick ramble on N-Tractor tires, some food for thought. Hope it helped. Take care.